If ever you're unsure about whether you're saying yes to the right things, you might need to stop first and actually think about. My name's Bear, and unlike the majority of autistic people who struggle with employment and income, I've always found managing money easy, although like many of us, I wasn't taught how to save in school. In this series, I'm sharing the money basics that I relay to friends and family whenever they ask me questions about generating wealth. And just in case you think I'm Rain Man, I actually don't like maths very much. The reason I'm comfortable with personal finance tips has a lot more to do with my beliefs and practical tips that you can apply too. I said previously it's not selfish or wrong to say no, but I think one of the reasons that we really struggle with saying no is because on the occasions that we try, we end up kind of fudging it and the other person's disappointed, or we're worried about being rejected for rejecting them, if that's how you're thinking about it. And so I thought I'd share a way to say no that's the least likely to offend, and that where you still sort of reach out a helping hand in return to the other person, but not necessarily in a way that then puts a burden on you if the reason that you're saying no is because you need to set a boundary with your time, or because they were asking you to do something that you just can't afford to do. I actually learned this from an entrepreneur and author named Michael Hyatt. So he talks about saying yes, no, yes. And when you learn about this, it has something in common with compliment sandwiches in the workplace. But this works a lot better than compliment sandwiches. I'll explain why in just a sec. So the way that you would say no with a yes, no, yes is when someone reaches out to you with a request, you start off your response with something positive towards them. So it might be congratulating them on whatever it is that they want you to help with. You can also thank them for thinking of you. It's a privilege to be asked for help, even if you have a feeling that the thing you're being asked to help with is just, that maybe they just don't respect you or your time, but it's fine. So you can thank them for asking you and let them know that it's amazing that they're doing whatever it is that they're planning to do that they want you to help with. Then you would say that you already have the maximum of commitments that you can deal with, and so you're saying no. And it's really important to stop there with the no and not be like, well, maybe ask me again in a month, or if you really don't want them to ask you again in a month, it's really important to leave the no at a no. So that can be good to try and avoid saying things like, well, it's a no currently, or I think it might be a no, because then that leaves the door open that that person thinks that you're going to get back to them, or that you're going to change your mind next week. And then the final thing is that you end with something positive again. Just share an alternative that might be helpful. So have they tried searching for such and such a thing? Have they thought of speaking to that person you both know who might be able to help instead? Just anything positive that might help them on their way, but that they don't have to get from you. A compliment sandwich, on the other hand, in the workplace is normally used for giving constructive feedback. And the idea is that the person in charge compliments someone, then gives the constructive feedback in the middle, and then ends with a compliment again, so that the employee's feelings aren't hurt by the fact that they received some feedback. But if feedback is really constructive, then it should never hurt to receive it anyway. So you shouldn't really need to have this kind of like cushioning either side. The dynamic is very different to a personal relationship where you're turning someone down, because telling someone that you might be quite close to that you don't actually want to travel to a foreign country for their wedding, or you don't want to drive 8 hours to go to their 1 hour birthday party or whatever it is, it's understandable why you might feel a bit guilty and like it reflects on how close you are to them if you say no. Whereas in a work setting, constructive feedback should just be constructive feedback. It shouldn't really need to be front loaded with a compliment about how great that person's hair is or how great a job they're doing. And what tends to happen with compliment sandwiches at work is that people just remember the first thing and the last thing that was said, and they actually don't realize that the part buried in the middle was the really important thing that needed remembering. I think the best solution that I ever saw to that, if you wanted to give someone constructive feedback on something and they were quite a sensitive person, or you're just worried that you aren't very good at getting your words in the right order, or that when you say something, when you think something, it sounds so logical, and then when it comes out your mouth, it just kind of comes out in the wrong tone or whatever. The suggestion I saw was that you just remember to add that you're saying something from a place of concern, or that you're saying it to try and be helpful, or because you really want that person to be able to do X thing better. Another reason why we find it difficult to set boundaries and say no is quite often because we don't value our time in the first place, or we don't know how to value our time. And that's how you can also get into situations where when you do say no to something and you don't give like a hard no, it becomes a debate because the other person might then say, but you said yes to such and such. How is this not the same thing? And so if ever you're unsure about whether you're saying yes to the right things, you might need to stop first and actually think about how are you valuing your time. And if you're saying yes to things that are taking you away from generating an income, let's say if you were trying to start a small business, or you're trying to make money as a content creator for the first time or something like that, or just trying to maintain a second job for the first time, if you find yourself turning down opportunities because you said yes to other things, just ask yourself, what could you have earned in that hour instead? Do you actually know the answer? But just on one other really good pointer I've seen before on how to help decide whether to say yes to something or not actually came from an entrepreneur and YouTuber named Lenarduzzi. And she says just ask the 3 R's if you're not sure whether something is really an opportunity or not. So is it something that could improve your revenue, your reach, or your relationships? And if the answer is no to all of those things, or any of those things, then maybe it's not worth your time, and perhaps you should use a yes, no, yes approach to say no to that if you're worried about hurting the other person's feelings. So remember, it's not selfish or wrong to say no. There's nothing wrong with commanding some respect and setting boundaries for the first time, and there are ways to say no that will make it feel less awkward for you and let the other person know that you do still care about what they were asking for help with, but that you just don't have the capacity right now to say yes to every type of request like that. So if you found today useful, don't forget to test what the like and subscribe button do for a pleasant surprise, and you'll want to catch the rest of the series next. The best way to get updates otherwise from Save Like a Bear is actually via my email newsletter, where I'll also send out a bonus guide on budgeting and mindset that you can use whether you've added a second income or not. Links to sign up to that are in the description.
Don't you have an elsewhere to be